there's no shortage of challenges that leaders have faced in the last 18 months of COVID-19, but the most profound failure has been this ongoing inability to drive global vaccinations sufficient to end the pandemic and get it under control. Severe inequality both between and within countries has hampered the public health response since the beginning. With the support of tens of billions of public funds, multiple viable vaccine candidates were developed in less than a year, which is an incredible scientific feat. But severe vaccine scarcity has meant that advanced economies cornered the market, often buying many times their need and leaving few for lower and middle income countries to purchase. I'm sure everyone on this call is already familiar with this story. Currently, Germany has sufficient vaccines to give 4 booster shot doses to their people, and many countries such as the US have wound up wasting millions of doses that could have been used elsewhere. Meanwhile, health systems that have been severely under-resourced after subsequent structural adjustment measures and debt distress have buckled under the strain. We can't forget that the hollowed out health systems and manufacturing capacities have been decades in the making. Indeed, more than 60 countries were spending more on debt servicing than on health budgets when the pandemic began. And the debt crisis is only deepening when at the same time G20 leaders say that they're going to do whatever it takes to end the pandemic. We now know that it's a fallacy that advanced economies needed these doses more and that they were the worst affected by the virus. Analysis has shown that the Global South has suffered far more deaths and more economic hardship from the pandemic without the same fiscal and public health buffers as their wealthier counterparts. This inefficient distribution of vaccines has and will prolong the intensity of the pandemic. But fixating only on how to divide available vaccine doses also eludes the obvious solution. As other speakers have mentioned, the world needs more vaccines and fast. But the manifestation of global asymmetries in the production and distributions of vaccines has and will continue to have deadly and costly consequences. And in my opinion, is an indication of one of the most important tensions in the global division of labour, technology and power for the years to come. It is meaning that 10,000 people are continuing to die every day. There's no choice but to advance efforts on multiple fronts. So first, more of the vaccines that are currently available must get to under-vaccinated regions. And one way to accomplish that is immediately ramping up donations from vaccine hoarding and producing countries. G7 countries, as an example, have not met their commitments, even though they are far from enough. And the flow of newly produced shots must also be redirected. So far, COVAX, which was set up to try and equitably distribute available vaccines, has achieved only about 10% of its commitment. However, while these initiatives are unequivocally necessary to begin the slow backpedal away from over a year of self-defeating vaccine nationalism, they don't alter the mechanics of a system that is set up for this inequity. The complex challenge of transitioning to a more equitable approach, however, is being rejected and resisted on all fronts. It's no surprise that the last year has seen an unprecedented amount of money spent by the pharmaceutical lobby. It's doing everything it can to coax leaders to protect pharma profits, which have, by the way, led to 9 new vaccine billionaires in the last year. So what are the policy tactics that could be taken to increase production but are either being blocked or not considered? The first tactic is now widely known. It's clearing away the thickets of patents that deter genetic production. As we've been discussing last October, South Africa and India drafted a proposal for waiving certain provisions of the TRIPS agreement at the WTO. The undergirding rationale being that traditional intellectual property protection has no place in a global pandemic, particularly when every vaccine candidate has benefited from public investment to get their development off the ground. These are public goods. This proposal now has the backing of almost every WTO member, despite the fact that the US's support is caveated with a restrictive approach, when really what we need is that comprehensive all COVID-19 related products. The waiver would allow countries to temporarily waive their domestic IP laws, and domestic producers could technically begin to manufacture and sell patent-protected products without negotiating a license with the originator firm and without fearing domestic or international legal repercussions. But a few countries are still blocking this. The EU, despite their parliament voting in favour of it, showing just how democratic that institution is. Norway, Switzerland, Australia, Singapore, and a few other nations like Brazil, continuing to equivocate. Their critiques of the waiver, and despite criticism from pharma companies and organisations like the Gates Foundation that building up capacity is too difficult in the south, the World Health Organization have identified 19 manufacturers from more than a dozen countries in Africa, Asia, and Latin America that want to ramp up mRNA vaccine production but lack access to the technology. And many of these firms are in regions that are severely under-vaccinated, like Vietnam and Bangladesh. Appeals to patent holders to facilitate technology transfer are not yielding results. It doesn't matter that you ask kindly, they're not going to do this voluntarily. Allowing the pharmaceutical industry to retain all that power and licensing technologies which are needed to end the pandemic is only going to lead to more time wasted and more lives lost when we can do so much more. The states which do host firms, the US, UK, Germany, China, Russia, and others, should create incentives, whether negative or positive, to compel technology transfer with the World Health Organization's COVID-19 Technology Access Pool, CTAP. Some countries that are developing their own vaccines, like Cuba and Mexico, are leading the way by already committing to open collaboration in vaccine technology and pooling manufacturing capacity with other national partners, highlighting the crucial role of South-South collaboration in tackling these vaccine monopolies.